As a real estate agent, I'm often asked how the home buying process really works. Hi, I'm Gino D'Angelo. I'm a Northern Michigan real estate agent that specializes in helping people relocate to Northern Michigan. Harbor Springs, Michigan is one of the most popular year-round resort towns, not only in Michigan, but in the Midwest or the country in general. If you're traveling out of state and somebody asks you where you're from and you say Harbor Springs, there's a good chance they're going to know what you're talking about. Due to the small town resort feel and the fact that year-round there's always something fun to do in Harbor Springs, no area has seen property values go up as much as Harbor Springs in the last couple of years. I'm going to talk about how the home buying process really goes and what you can do to ensure a smooth process. When buying a home, whether it's in Harbor Springs or anywhere else, the first thing you need to do is look at your budget. You need to determine what your monthly expenses are based on your monthly income to figure out a relative idea of what you can spend per month on a mortgage payment. Another great way to find out what your purchasing power actually is would be to speak with a local lender to get pre-approved. They will look at your credit, your income, your expenses, and a couple of other factors to determine what mortgage payment you can afford per month. Once you know what mortgage payment you can afford, that translates into the purchase price you can pay, which is how you begin to look at homes. Now, whether you choose to do so before you get pre-approved or until you wait until after you're pre-approved, you're going to want to select a buyer's agent. But you're going to want to make sure you interview several agents to find the best one to represent you. Now, a lot of people that come here decide they're just going to call the listing agent to try to see the house, and while that's okay, it's not the best idea. The reason for that is the listing agent works for the seller and they are working in the seller's best interest. As part of the listing contract, the seller offers to pay a portion of the commission to any buyer's agent who brings a buyer to the property. So in essence, you get representation, an agent that represents you in your best interest for no additional cost. A couple of things to consider when picking the right buyer's agent to work for you is whether they're part of a team or work by themselves, how well they know the area, how many houses they've sold in the last 12 months. Those are all important because you want somebody that's active in the market to represent you. That way they can guide you with what's going on today, not just what has gone on in the past. I've helped countless people buy homes in Harbor Springs because quite frankly, it's someplace that I like to hang out. I snowboard there in the wintertime, I play golf there in the summer, and I ride my bike there 3 seasons out of the year. So now you've decided you're going to move to Harbor Springs, you've been pre-approved, you've selected your real estate agent, now comes the fun part, actually beginning to look at homes. I often get asked by buyers what's the first step when compiling a list of houses that they want to see. And I simply answer coming up with what the house must have versus what you would like the house to have. With as competitive as the real estate market is today, it's sometimes more important to find the must-haves and hope for the want-to-haves. That way you can find the house that fits you. Now I get asked, what are some of the things that would qualify as a must-have? And I would respond with a certain amount of bedrooms, a certain amount of bathrooms. Is there a location close to your work or family or something that's important to you? What amenities does the house need to have? Does it need to be a ranch or are you okay with stairs? Does it have to have a large fenced-in yard for your dogs? Do you need a garage? Those are what I would qualify as must-haves for a house. Now in terms of wants, it can be something like a quiet street, an updated kitchen, move-in ready, hardwood floors, stainless steel appliances, an updated kitchen. Those are all things that whether the house has it today or not, you could certainly add that in the future, making it a want versus a must-have. Now you've been pre-approved, you've hired a real estate agent, you've began to look at houses, and you find the house that you believe is a good fit for you. What happens next? What happens next is you make an offer and go through the offer process. The offer process starts with making an offer. Typically, the seller will review that offer and make a counter offer. Once you and the seller agree to terms, you move on to the next step of the process, which is getting your house inspected and then also having the bank appraisal done. The bank will appraise the house to make sure the value you're paying for the house is in line with what other houses similar to that house have sold for. Once you get past getting the offer accepted, you get past the home inspection, you get past the appraisal, there is nothing left to do besides close. Now, on the closing date, it's a very exciting time. There is nothing to stress about. Just make sure you have your license and something to sign with and you'll be good to go. Now, a common question I get is from the time I start looking at a house, from the time I move in, how long will that take? A good guide to go by is if you start looking for a house today, it's going to take you anywhere from 2 weeks to a month to find a house. Once you find a house, the closing process typically takes between 30 and 45 days. Once you close on the house, sometimes the seller needs occupancy after closing, which can be up to another 30 days. This is why it's important for you to call me so we can figure out the timeline for how long it's going to take from the start of the process to the end for you to get into the house. And I've had a lot of buyers tell me that they're surprised at how long the process is, and they wish they would have gotten started a little bit sooner to not feel so rushed along the way. Another question I get asked is, how much does it actually cost to buy a house outside of the purchase price? Or how much money am I going to need to buy a house? The simplest answer to that is the first initial cost you're going to have when purchasing a home is the deposit when you make an offer. When a buyer asks me how much money they should put down for a deposit, I always give them as a rule about 1% of the purchase price. Now, if you have more money available, the stronger your deposit, the better your offer looks in a competitive situation. The next expense you have is the home inspection. Now, depending on the size and the scope of the home inspection, that can run anywhere from $500 to $1,000, but typically somewhere in the middle. Once you get past the home inspection, the next expense you have is the appraisal. Now, depending on your bank, you may have to pay for the appraisal up front, or they may just add it to your loan and you pay it at closing. Now, none of this comes as a surprise because shortly before closing, your lender will work with you to give you a good faith estimate on how much money you actually need to bring to closing. And during the pre-approval process, they make sure that you have that money available. Now, what happens if you don't have excess money to cover your closing costs? Oftentimes, we can do what's called seller concessions, where you bump up the purchase price and have the seller pay a portion or all of your closing costs to reduce the money out of pocket that you need to bring to closing. Now, you've accomplished all these steps. We've given you the keys on closing day. We've made sure that we've helped you coordinate the lawn company, the garbage removal, given you the utilities, helps you get everything set up to make the transition as smooth as possible. Now, while the home buying process in Harbor Springs isn't that much different in the rest of Northern Michigan, there are some small differences, and myself or my team would love to schedule a call to help walk you through step by step of what it's going to take for you to go through this process and have it go as smoothly as possible. If you have found this video helpful, please like this video, and for more videos about buying a home in Harbor Springs or anywhere else in Northern Michigan, please subscribe to my channel. And for anything else related to real estate in Northern Michigan, feel free to call me at 231-487-6141.